Welcome into the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. You knew that because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. And we are on a tight schedule today, ladies and gents. Yes, a morning show has shown up in the afternoon, whether you're on X or Facebook or YouTube, which, by the way, you should go subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora. You know the whole deal by now. And by the way, for those who might have missed it the other day, Red October merch is now available. You go to shop.therussjoyshow.com. Go pick up some great designs. We might get back there later, but I promise you it's worth it. That's also in the description of the episode. Go get your Red October merch. Fantastic designs, also produced by a local company. We don't send this stuff to China, to Taiwan, to Honduras. We send it wherever, but it's local. Printed locally, shipped locally. It's all great. Well, ship anywhere. But it's done. It's fulfilled locally. It doesn't matter. That's not what you're here for. You are here for a somewhat irreverent show on a Friday afternoon instead of a Friday morning. Russ, why didn't you do the show in the morning when you're supposed to? Because Russ was busy. We've been going through a kitchen reno. For those of you who have gone through this before, you'll know that sometimes it turns your life a little bit upside down. I was up there clearing out some cabinets. We got a new island put in. Daylight come and me want to go home. No, we got a new island put in the kitchen. Looks great. We're working on a couple of things. Some pieces are in, some pieces aren't. It's fine. We're making do. We are doing the very best that we can, and that's all you can do. But I have to be honest with you. I thought about like what today's show is supposed to be, and if I had done the show in the morning, it would have had a very different sound to it. It would have had a somewhat different look to it, at least on the thumbnail, where you go to kind of get your preview of what the episode is. I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to have a little bit of a fun and off the rails conversation today because I feel like it, and it's a fun Friday. And I don't think there's anything that serious right now that we really need to dive into. Now, we are going to talk about a couple of the things that are going around the Flyers. We have Matvei Michkov kind of dazzling in his first game at Wells Fargo Center, scoring an empty net goal, tip of the cap. We're going to talk about Alexei Kolosov's decision to return to these United States of America, including a message from the former president of the United States who apparently wanted to weigh in on Alexei Kolosov. We'll get to that a little bit later on in the show. Again, this is a non-political show, but we'll get there a little bit later on. And as if that weren't enough, they're apparently trying to make a documentary about Trea Turner's standing ovation. I'll tell you what, I might be standing right now doing the show, but I'm not sure I'm going to stand for that documentary. But we'll get back there later as well. Oh, yeah, and that's right, the Eagles. The Eagles are playing a game this weekend. It might be an important one. Oh, and the rumor came out today that apparently the guy that they traded away for Bryce Huff might be open to a trade to come back here. Come home to Papa. Come home to Philadelphia, Hassan Reddick. Take less money, but come here. Come on in. Come and knock on our door. Hassan Reddick apparently open to coming back to Philadelphia. We might get to that later on. Plus, I'll get to whatever you want to get to. If we fly through this thing in 25 minutes and I need additional stuff to talk about, I'll go out to the comments. But I always know that I can rely on commenters, especially over on YouTube, even though we're at a totally different time. Josh White checks in. Oh, yes! There's a new Snow the Goalie. In case you might have missed that, we did a Snow the Goalie earlier today. It's been a very big content day. I did stuff for work. I did a podcast. We've got this one that I'm going to go back and work. I'll probably work until 11 o'clock tonight, and it'll be fine. I'll wake up at 5 and finish writing some stuff for the weekend. It's going to be fine. No big deal. It's going to be great. Josh White joined us for Snow the Goalie earlier on today. Chris Freed says, where are the tubular meats? All right, fine. We'll touch on that really quickly. Over on the Snow the Goalie feed, if you haven't watched it yet or if you haven't listened yet in your favorite podcast app, we talked about how apparently hot dogs have made a return at Wells Fargo Center, but not for the humans, not for all of the normal people. It's for the press box. Apparently, they've decided that it's a good idea to put hot dogs in front of the media. And Bill Meltzer's the one who put it out at the preseason game last night that apparently we are going to have hot dogs up in the press box, which is somewhat problematic. I'll be honest with you, because I know we kind of touched on the wedding the other day, the Anthony Sanfilippo wedding, but I was legitimately feeling a little bit bad about myself afterwards because I knew that my weight's my weight. I am by no means obese, but I'm a short guy, and you kind of have to be skinny, otherwise you kind of look chunky. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm going to go back to the gym. I think my stress fracture, my foot's healed up enough that I can start to go back. And then I see this from Bill Meltzer, that they have free hot dogs in the press box. Now, I will tell you that one of the best perks, maybe one of the only perks to being media, at Flyers games or wherever is that you actually, you get to snack a little bit during the game. Now, it's a little bit different where we are doing the press row show versus where all of the regular media sit and cover the game. They get to sit on press row. They get to chitty chat while the game's going on. Some people like to be very serious, locked in. Some people wear their full suits. Some people kind of took on the me and Anthony Sanfilippo thing where, all right, man, maybe wear like a little quarter zip. Quarter zip's okay. You don't need a tie. What are you doing? You're not going to a wedding. You're not going to a funeral. What are we doing? But hockey writers, this is like their whole thing. We have to wear a suit. Everybody's, they've worn suits as long as I can remember, so we're going to wear suits. All right, fine. Well, good luck wearing a suit and getting relish on your tie. Getting a little bit of mustard on the white button down. Well, anyway, Bill Meltzer shared that out, which got me very excited because I like a hot dog. And I said on Snow the Goalie, I like some good tubular meat from time to time. I like a hot dog. I like a sausage sandwich. Let he who or she or they them, let whoever hasn't eaten a sausage sandwich before cast the first stone. I'm pretty sure that was in the Bible or something. It was somewhere. I'm pretty sure I've heard it. Anyway, tubular meats, great. So we have hot dogs up there. We're going to have candy up there. There are sometimes pretzels and popcorn. It's great. Being media, if you are a young, aspiring journalist, I don't know if I'd recommend going into media right now, but if you are, there are worse things in the world. Now, I think it's the Phillies. I want to say it's the Phillies. I think the Phillies have like a significantly better spread from what I have been told, that the food might be a little bit better. I've heard the Eagles have a nice spread. Not saying that the Flyers spread is bad. I don't know what the Sixers one looks like. The meals in the downstairs, they're fine. They're okay. But last year when good old Russ started packing on some pounds because he may or may not have made a lot of runs to Wawa. Probably should have expensed those, didn't. But probably could now. Hashtag Joy Media LLC. Business expense. Food. You have to eat. You have to eat to do your job. Anyway, and to live, I guess, in theory. All right, we're going to go over here really quick. Josh White says, John chapter 8. Thank you. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate that. He pulled out his handy-dandy tubular meat book. So that's good. Mr. Twitster over on YouTube as well saying this is a lot of Russ in one day. That is, yes. There has been a lot on the interwebs today. But anyway, we're going to get into some of what's been going on. Now, I don't care which way we go. We can start with the Flyers. We can start with the standing ovation documentary. I think we're going to start with Flyers. And if that is upsetting to you, you could just skip ahead. Now, if you're watching live, you can't. You're stuck with me. You can't close out the window. You can't close it out and come back to it. No. You just have to deal with it. But if you're listening to the podcast feed, I guess you could skip ahead. But that would just be very hurtful. It would hurt whatever ego I may or may not have. Stick around for some Flyers talk. You might actually learn something. You might understand why some Flyers fans are actually excited. And then after that, we'll get to the Trea Turner documentary. Maybe we'll get to the Hassan Reddick thing because I just find it absolutely hilarious at this point. Now, there are two big stories that have come out in recent days around your team, your town, your Philadelphia Flyers. The first is obviously people being very excited about Matvei Michkov. Everybody is over the moon excited about what exactly the guy who's being touted by me, by many, as being arguably the most exciting Flyers prospect in a decade. Everybody wants to see what he's going to look like. And if you go back a little bit, there was the rookie game. He looked very good. Jet Lashenko, the Flyers' first-round pick from this summer, looked incredibly fast. They looked like they were starting to build some really nice chemistry. We saw some positive signs out of Oliver Bonk, who was a high draft pick in the past. Defenseman. People were getting excited. Could he potentially get a look to start the season? Could Jet Lashenko surprise everybody, make the opening day roster, the opening night roster, maybe get an 8 or 9 game look, a little audition with the team before they send him down and don't burn a year of his ELC? This is somewhat standard practice, but nobody actually expected Jet Lashenko to look like he belonged. Now, in fairness, in the rookie games, he looked great. He really did. And at camp alone, he has looked very good. In fact, there's a thing that came out not that long ago. It was over on the Flyers feed. It was on their YouTube channel, The Standard. They're in, I think, season 3 of that. And there's a moment where, John Tortorella says that he has some thoughts about Lashenko, but, the fitness was there, that he was pushing Tippett. Tippett's a very fast skater, and, Lashenko impressed him, impressed Jones, impressed Briere. Now, when it actually got to the preseason game against the Islanders, Lashenko didn't look bad. He just didn't pop off the page in the same way. To be expected. He's a really young guy. He's not exactly a massive human being either. Going into that game, there were some clips that came out. I think it was Jordan Hall from NBC Sports Philly put out a video of Lashenko going for a puck in the corner and getting slammed into by Rasmus Ristolainen. Obviously, a massive difference there. Height, weight, size, overall, strength, years in the league. Many factors go into it, and you think, all right, Lushenko in open ice, incredibly fast. Lushenko as a playmaker, we've actually seen that in practice, and we've seen that in the rookie game. In some live scrimmages, like Lushenko looks like he belongs. Then you get to live competition, and it's a little bit different. The Flyers are in this very interesting position with Lushenko, especially where no one expected him to make the team out of camp. Nobody expected him to really even push for a spot or consideration, and he's survived a couple of roster cuts. There's the thought out there of like, all right, if you're the Flyers and you're in a rebuild, is it the smartest thing to give him the opportunity now? Like, what does it do to harm him? Will it hurt him long term if you let him stay up for 8 or 9 games, even if he doesn't play in all those games, or if he doesn't play a lot in those games? Is it really that big of a deal? And I'd argue no. Like, as you are in a rebuild, that's at least what they tell us. Give the kid a look. Now let's see how the rest of the preseason goes. I'd be happy if the Flyers hung on to him until the very end, and maybe on the last roster cut day, they say, you know what, kid, like you looked really good. We might take a look later on in the season, but as of right now, we don't think you're physically ready yet. Go down, dominate, and then we'll bring you back up. Or next season, next summer, you'll have a legitimate chance to make the team out of camp. I see no downside to that. Now, in theory, as a rebuilding team, if Lushenko can show over the next few preseason games that he does belong, that the height, the weight, the experience differential isn't as bad as it might have looked against the Islanders, and that like maybe he could grow into it and maybe remain in place, well, then there's a case to be made that like Lushenko and Michkov growing together could be a really nice thing. Your downside, of course, is it's really hard to envision a scenario where Lushenko will get to stay with Michkov. It feels like what's more likely to happen is that Michkov will end up with Morgan Frost. And if that's the case, then there is a question of what happens to Jet Lushenko. Where does he go? Where does he fit on this team? And no one seems to actually know. So I'm not even sure that if he were to make it out of camp, that you would get to see Lushenko and Michkov playing together. And at that point, then you say, all right, is it the most advantageous thing to have Lushenko playing third line center? Who's on his wings? And like, is he actually going to be in position to be successful? We don't know. That's one thing. So Lushenko has been his own kind of positive against the Islanders. It maybe wasn't dominant. Maybe it wasn't like he looked like he belonged in every sense of the word. But I don't think it like kills any chance of him getting a look at some point this season with the Flyers. So that's cool. That's a big positive. And honestly, it's an unexpected one. I was very vocal about the fact that I thought the Flyers reached. Now, just because he looked good in camp doesn't mean he's going to be a sensational pro. Doesn't mean that he's going to be a top 6 forward. But it does mean that in theory, like, maybe there's more to this kid than people like me thought. Maybe his just incredible skating and speed is going to cause that many problems for opposing teams that, like, I don't know, he'll grow into the role. We don't know yet. That's the weird thing about hockey. A lot of times people like to compare hockey and basketball when it comes to the draft, right? Top pick, top 10 pick, you expect dominance. And that's not exactly what happens. In hockey, you sometimes have 3 or 4 players, maybe, who get to debut in the NHL as a rookie, unless they've been playing for a long time and like they come in as like an older rookie. They're not coming in as an 18-year-old, right? Typically, you don't get that many guys starting the season or playing the entire season in the NHL as a like top 15 pick. You might get 3 or 4. You certainly don't end up in a situation where you see like a number 15 pick or 16 or 17 or 18 that they end up making it and make it as like an 18-year-old. And I think he just turned 18. So the fact that they're even like entertaining the idea of him staying with the team and not having gone through the first couple of cuts, or like not having gone down with the first couple of cuts, is a really good sign. If nothing else, it's a sign that they think that there's something to this kid. That's a huge positive. Okay, that's one. Number 2, Matvei Michkov, who has all of these incredible expectations put on his shoulders. And as I said before, is being viewed as the number 1 prospect that the Flyers have had in at least a decade. He's looked really good. If you watch the Islanders game, some of you may have, some of you may not have. There is elite vision. This guy has something special. From a playmaking ability on its own, the vision is there. The ability to execute passes that would make most of these guys puke on themselves is also there. Now, I can't show you highlights because YouTube doesn't like that. But if you just do a really quick search on Twitter, on X, and you look, just type in Michkov, okay? If you do that, you're going to be dazzled by some of the decisions that he made on ice. Now, one thing the Flyers are going to have to be better at is actually executing the play and actually executing, like being able to put the puck in the back of the net when he finds you in an advantageous position. But again, it's a rebuilding team and it's not a particularly talented squad. Now, if Michkov ends up on the second line, like many of us expect him to, he'll probably be playing on a line with Owen Tippett, Morgan Frost, and then Matvei Michkov. That's a pretty damn good second line in a rebuild. We still don't know exactly what Matvei Michkov is. We don't know if he's going to be a playmaker, which, based on a preseason game and some other things we've heard, might be the case. We don't know if he's a 30-goal scorer, a 35-goal scorer. No one is expecting him right now to be the second coming of Alex Ovechkin. We're not there, but no one actually does know what he's going to grow into. There was a quote very recently from I believe it was a paper in Russia, that interviewed Ivan Demidov, who had played with him at the national team level. And I believe they had played a little bit together in camp at was it Siska Moscow or St. Petersburg? I think it was St. Petersburg, before Michkov got loaned out to Sochi in back-to-back years. And Demidov actually dropped this little truth bomb. Can we call it the Demi bomb? Is that okay? I think we could say that, right? Demi bomb. Okay. He drops this little nugget in the interview that he thinks Michkov could play center, which there had been some thoughts. There had been some thoughts out there that maybe Matvei Michkov could look to play a couple of positions. They think that he could play on the right wing. There was a thought that maybe as he grows and develops, he could be a center. Demidov seems to believe he can. Now, that doesn't mean that it's entirely true. It doesn't mean that Ivan Demidov is onto something that the Flyers haven't considered themselves. Okay, so let's be fair. But what we do know is that there's at least one guy who has played with Michkov at a somewhat impressive level and on multiple teams, and thinks that there's potential there. Michkov looks very good. Now, in terms of the rest of the guys on this roster, I have no idea. You couldn't get me to go on the record and tell you that I think Oliver Bonk is going to be here. I'm not exactly sure. I don't think he will be. I don't see any young defenseman making it out of training camp and onto the opening night roster. I think that Bonk maybe had an inside track for a little bit, and I think that's since gone away. Is there a chance that they could give him a look in the first 4 or 5 games of the season? Maybe. I don't think they're rushing a rookie defenseman. I don't think they're rushing a young defenseman to make their way up here. In theory, they have enough defensemen as is. Now, whether or not they're very good or not, that's up to you. I still don't think Rasmus Ristolainen is a particularly good defenseman. I think that Travis Sanheim is an okay defenseman. Jamie Drysdale has maybe power play 1 quarterback ability, but as a all situations defenseman, I have no idea if you can rely on him. Nick Seeler, I think, was a massive benefactor, a massive beneficiary of Walker, who, after he left, Seeler got hurt. Seeler never actually looked the same without Walker after they traded him. And then you look at whatever's left. Eric Johnson's back here. Shouldn't expect to play very much. Will we see Ginning? Will we see Addard at some point? Will we see Zamula? Will we see Emil Andre? I think that they'll probably have some kind of rotation in that third pair. But I don't expect the Flyers to go out of their way to try to overextend a young guy just for the sake of making him feel good. I don't see that happening. That's just me. And I'm usually pretty right about this stuff. So that part's done. Those are 2 really good positives. Jet Lashenko looks impressive. Matvei Michkov looks impressive. And the difference between the two, of course, is that Michkov looked impressive in that preseason game. Now, it wasn't like the Islanders had their opening night roster out, right? There was a good mix of a lot of AHL guys, but some actual pros. And even AHL guys, in fairness, doesn't mean that they're unqualified. It certainly doesn't change the fact that some of them are older players, more mature players, experienced players. You could take away that as a positive. Now, there's one thing that's a little bit of a with the Flyers. There's one. Their goalie situation is not in flux, but their goalie situation is going to be something to keep an eye on. There are 2 reasons for that. One, we think that Sam Ersson is a solid number 1 or a solid 1A. If you go back to a season ago, the thing that made the Flyers really, really interesting is that, Carter Hart played really well. And no one seems to have any idea whatsoever if the shock to the system of Sam Ersson being thrown into the number one goalie role for the team down the stretch, second half of the season, if that's part of why his performance dropped off. Was it a mental thing? Was it a physical thing that he just wasn't used to being played as much as he was? There's something to be said for that, perhaps. I just saw something pop up here over in the comments, and I'm not sure that this is true. I think that this is silly. Okay, so Sean C. threw me for a loop. I started trying to Google something while talking. Not exactly the best. Sean C. goes, did you see hot off the presses from Russia that says Kolosov only flew halfway across the world to negotiate the termination of his contract in person? No, absolutely not. Don't believe that that's true. And then says, seemed that was debunked the moment he hit the ice today. Intrigued to find more about how and why he decided to come on over. So, okay, let's back off for a second. Let's just think bigger picture here, okay? The reason that I said the goalie situation is sort of in flux is because Sam Ersson is a good number 1 or 1A, but we don't know what he's going to look like after a full season. Ivan Fedotov came over at the end of last season, was waiting on a visa. Visa pops up. He's like breaking in new pads, landing in the U.S., surprising everybody with a somewhat passable amount of English at his intro press conference after everyone thought he was going to spend the rest of his career in the KHL. If you missed any of that, you can go back in past episodes of the Russ Joy Show or of Snow the Goalie. You can go find all kinds of stuff about Fedotov and what happened to him and, allegedly what might have happened. But Fedotov was here and got a look at the end of the season. But the reason things got really interesting as of a couple days ago is because the Flyers went and they signed a Finnish goalie, Eetu Mäkiniemi. And people were like, all right, well, why are they signing him to a two-way contract? Like, what exactly is the deal? He's 25 years old. He had an 8-8 record with a 3.14 goals against average and a 900 save percentage in 18 games for the San Jose Barracuda of the AHL last season. Of course, I didn't memorize those numbers. They're on the screen over here. But people were like, well, why the hell did they sign him? Is it like they have like Bjornsson, they have a few other guys that they like in the pipeline. Why would they go out and sign another goalie? Well, it was maybe because they had to part ways with Alexei Kolosov. Maybe they're preparing a trade of Alexei Kolosov. Maybe they got the indication that Kolosov was going to try to force his way either back onto Dynamo Minsk, which has 3 goalies under contract, 1 hurt, but maybe he was going to try to stay over there, see if another KHL team would pick him up, whatever. So they signed this guy, Mäkiniemi. The next day, literally the next day, Kevin Weeks tweets out the video. Kevin Weeks says the thing, and if you don't, it's hilarious. Tweets out like some innocuous thing in the background. Sometimes it's like a washing machine. Sometimes it'll be like a fire hydrant. Sometimes it's like the laundromat. Like you never know where he's going to be tweeting from or putting these videos up from. They're like playing at like, I think he's got like the kids' playroom or whatever. It doesn't matter. And he says that Alexei Kolosov's on a plane to come report to Flyers camp. All of a sudden, all the Flyers people are like, what the hell's going on? Wait, this dude's showing up now? The guy who like the Flyers effectively guaranteed last year, you're going to be the Phantoms goalie. Like 100%. You will be the Phantoms goalie. And I still believe told Kolosov, you'll have a chance to compete for a job at the NHL level. That's just me. I'm pretty sure I'm right. Kolosov came over. He didn't get to play at the NHL level because while he waited for his visa, Fedotov got his. Fedotov suits up. Kolosov never gets to play for the Flyers. He doesn't really get to play much at all for the Phantoms. Doesn't get to play at all in the postseason because, well, Cal Peterson got to start in the playoffs. And I'm of the crazy mindset that like, no, I would like to see the guy who just worked to get his visa and come over. I'd like to see him get a start. You get all the hockey traditionalists who say, well, then you're telling the team that you don't really care about their performance that season. I don't. I'm crazy. I don't give a shit if the AHL team worked really, really hard to make the playoffs. And like Cal Peterson, who has no future with the organization, like I don't really care if it hurts his feelings. I genuinely don't. He was a throw-in in a trade. He was a guy that you took for cap purposes. He's not part of the long-term future of the team. I don't care if it hurts his feelings. I don't care if it hurts the feelings of some of the guys on the Phantoms team. If that means you get to put Alexei Kolosov in for 1 playoff game, give me a break. The hockey traditionalists are the hockey traditionalists. Like, you can't do that. You can't do it. And they only had a couple of regular season games. You can't all of a sudden just upset the apple cart. Well, what happens if Cal Peterson blew out his knee? Then what exactly happens? Oh, that's right. That's right. They'd have to probably play Alexei Kolosov. Well, they could have played Felix Sandstrom. Yeah, okay, but they could have played Kolosov. So Kolosov gets upset over the summer. We know this whole thing. Was he trying to force a trade? He switched agents, all that. Kolosov comes over. Everybody's like, wow, why is he here? Well, pretty clearly, it's because whether it was with Dynamo Minsk, with the fact that they have 3 goalies under contract, whether it's because he and his agent saw, oh shit, the Flyers actually called the bluff. Like they signed another goalie who's now part of the system and is on a 2-way contract. Like that's not nothing. It's like a $775,000 contract. It's not nothing. Now all of a sudden it puts a little bit of pressure. Well, now it's not like, oh, they're going to have to wait for me. They're going to have to like beg me to come over if, Urson or Fedotov get blown up in the preseason, or if Cal Peterson gets hurt, they're going to have to like make amends. They're going to have to give me a chance. No, like the Flyers went out, they called bullshit. They signed this guy, Makiniemi, who doesn't really factor into their future plans, I don't believe, but it got Kolosov over here. And it's very, very interesting. Because like that's a pretty badass move by the Flyers. Like that's playing a little bit of hardball. And I liked it. Now I alluded to this earlier on in the show, but I was cued in on this. Apparently, someone requested comment from a former president of the United States. They said, we need to know where former President Donald Trump stood on Alexei Kolosov coming to the United States of America. Because you would think that in the midst of a presidential campaign, you would be paying attention to that. But no, apparently he had something to say. And so he went to Twitter and he offered his thoughts on Alexei Kolosov and why Alexei Kolosov signed here, or not signed here, came over here, flew across the country, flew across the world to come suit up for Flyers training camp. We're going to throw it over really quick. And again, it's an apolitical show, but we're just going to take it here really quickly. Apparently, former President Trump had something to say about Kolosov. Let's go over to that. My fellow Americans, I've been asked by many people, they've said, what are your thoughts on Alexei Kolosov? They say he's coming to these United States of America. How do you feel about it? Do you believe it's a great move for Alexei and it's a good move for the Flyers, maybe even the Phantoms? It's a great move for Alexei, but I'm going to tell you why. It's not because he's going to be a Flyer. It's not because he may become a Phantom, but it's because his life has been hell. It's been absolute hell since he decided to go back to Belarus. I didn't even know Belarus is a country. It sounds like a Belarus to me, if you're asking me. And maybe you are, maybe you're not. But many people, they ask me. And they say, why would he want to leave Belarus? Why would he want to come back to America after he said he didn't want to be here? And it's pretty simple. Not a lot of people know this. Some people do. The people who ask me, they know. They say, why would Alexei Kolosov want to come to America? And it's very simple. There was one time I went and I was visiting my friend Vladimir Putin. And we tried to get the toaster to turn on. And we said, Alexa. And it didn't work. And then we learned you have to say Alexei. And then all of a sudden the toaster turns on. The lights turn on. It must be very frustrating for Mr. Kolosov that every time somebody says his name, Alexei, the toaster turns on. Who wants that? Nobody wants that. I don't want that. You don't want that. No one wants that. So he's going to have a great life here. People will say Alexa, and that'll do the toaster. But if he has his name said, whether it's in Lehigh Valley or in Voorhees, New Jersey, or in Philadelphia or somewhere in Delco, if they say Alexei, it won't turn on their toaster. And we love that. We love that for Alexei Kolosov. Is he going to be a great goalie? We don't know. We don't know. Is he going to be better than Cal Peterson? Probably. Is he going to be better than Etu Brute, who they signed yesterday? Maybe not. Is he going to be better than Ivan Fedotov, who cut the line? He jumped the line with a visa. Is he going to be better than Fedotov? We don't know. Is he going to be better than Sam Urson, whatever you want to say? We don't know. But now Alexei, he gets to come stateside. He gets to speak Russian. He gets to say, Oichem Priyatna, Minya Zavut Alexei. And now at least two people, Fedotov and also Michkov, Matvei Michkov. They will also know what he's saying. So we wish Alexei Kolosov such great, great things. And ultimately, what do we want, folks? We want him to win. We want him and the Flyers to win so bigly. We want them to take over the Metropolitan Division. And if it's not this year, maybe next year. It all depends. The standings don't really matter, do they, folks? They don't really matter. Anyway, we wish the very best to Alexei. Have a great day. I don't even know what to say. I think that was was that an exclusive? That was an exclusive quote? That was an exclusive thing to us here at the Russ Joy Show? Wow. Huh, how about So Alexei Kolosov is here. The Flyers apparently have a bunch of goalies that they get to choose from now. The weird part, the one thing that we do have to kind of note here is a little bit strange, is that apparently, this report is a little bit shoddy, but there's a report out there that apparently, as part of Kolosov coming over and reporting to camp, he wants to have the ability to go back to the KHL if he doesn't make the NHL team, or if he doesn't see a viable path to the NHL. Just based on the guys that are on the depth chart in front of him, he should get an actual look. And the thing that has baffled me for this entire time is if you're Alexei Kolosov, you have to look at Ivan Fedotov and say, yeah, he got a multi-million-dollar deal, and it's more than a single season, but he didn't exactly tear it up. Now, in fairness to Fedotov, dude got dropped on the tarmac, legitimately, got dropped on the tarmac, new pads, everything, was not in a position to be successful. If we go back to pre-Fedotov getting picked up by that van and sent off to military service for a year, there were people internally with the Flyers who questioned whether or not Fedotov could actually push Hart for the number one job on the team. So if you wrote off Fedotov after last year because of how he played on very quick turnaround and trying to learn the American game and everything, I don't think that's fair. But if you're Kolosov, there are a lot of factors that could be at play, and all it takes is one injury, and all of a sudden you're getting starts at the NHL level. So we'll see if Kolosov stays over. We'll see what he ultimately decides to do. But to me, it's been one of the most fascinating things going on around the team. Now, in fairness, if the Flyers were a really good team or they had Stanley Cup aspirations, this would be a non-story. But just based on the talent they have and based on what we expect of the Flyers this season, this is actually a pretty fun story. And the fact that he's here now kind of also debunks anybody who wanted to compare Kolosov and Quitter Gautier's situation because they're not the same. Kolosov came back. Now, when does running back to your ex work? I don't know. I don't know if running back to your ex or taking back your ex ever works. In fact, I can think of many situations in life where that's certainly not the case. I've known many friends who have gone back. They've gone back to their exes. It never ends well, folks. Never ends well. The hell was that? Anyway, you don't go back to your ex or you don't take back your ex. And it's fitting that we end the show with the possibility that the Eagles might try to take back an ex. They might try to take back, or they might be open to, or at least the player is saying, well, I liked Philadelphia. I'd go back to Philadelphia. Maybe I would. I think I can. The report came out, I believe, today. It might have been Thursday, but I'm pretty sure it was on Friday, that Hassan Reddick might be open to coming back to the Eagles after he was traded in the offseason to the Jets. Now, as we all know, the decision to jettison Hassan Reddick and replace him with Bryce Huff has not exactly worked. I have as many sacks this season as Bryce Huff. I have as many tackles for loss. I have as many quarterback pressures in the last 2 weeks as Bryce Huff. I don't know if you know this or not. I'm not a big person. I certainly don't play football. I would not do very well pushing up against 350-pound men or even 250 pounds. 150, I got you, buddy. It's a leverage game, and I'm a short guy. Low center of gravity. 250, no. 350, absolutely not. This hasn't worked. Bryce Huff, that experiment has not worked at all. Has not worked in the least bit. I see almost no conceivable way that we could ever see Hassan Reddick back this year as an Eagle. I don't know. The contract situation's weird. He's been taking fines. And I don't remember if he doesn't report by a certain week. I don't remember if he can actually hold out and then just become a free agent if he continues to pay the fines or if they get to essentially toll his contract for a year. I don't remember. Not that it really matters. I see almost no way that the Jets trade Hassan Reddick back to the Eagles because that would look really sleazy. In the grand scheme of things, it would look really bad, even if the Eagles didn't mean for this to happen, right? If the Eagles trade away Hassan Reddick, they bring in Bryce Huff. Remember, that was not a one-for-one trade. They get rid of Hassan Reddick. They sign Bryce Huff, and then they trade back for Reddick. Oh, how he would look very scummy at that point. That would not go over well in the GM circles in the NFL. This isn't akin to saying, we traded Cliff Lee, let's bring him back. That's not how this works. I don't think it would actually work well at all. I just don't see a scenario where the Eagles do it. Now, the only way that it happens is like, I think the Jets weren't willing to pay Bryce Huff what he thought he was worth. Like, is there a scenario here where the Eagles say, this isn't working? The Jets look at it and say, well, we would like to have some kind of an edge rush. Like, maybe we could, maybe. But apparently Huff's replacement's doing okay. So, like, I don't even see that. I just don't see it happening. But there are people who are, like, trying to will it into existence that Howie's going to go out and somehow fleece the Jets and get Hassan Reddick back, who also, like, by the way, like, clearly has not been playing. I'm assuming is keeping himself in shape in case, like, a contract gets worked out. But, like, there's going to be a lot of rust. And Reddick wasn't exactly effective in his last year here. In fairness, that was under Sean Desai, who got axed, 12 weeks into the season? Or got, like, emasculated, castrated? And they replaced him with Matt Patricia. Like, I don't really hold anything against any player on the defense last year after that happened, okay? But, like, is Hassan Reddick going to come in and be a legitimate impact player for the Eagles? I don't know. Maybe. I just don't see it happening. The Eagles need to get the pass rush figured out, though. They need to get the edge figured out because, again, you can't, like, when we get done this week, like when the Eagles come out of the other side against the Bucs, a game in which they're going to hope to get to Baker Mayfield. If the Eagles can't figure out a way to have another edge rusher look better than 75-year-old Brandon Graham, you're going to have a legitimate problem. Because you can go into the bye week after that and like feel like, hey, even if you win, right? You're like, oh, I feel good about it. No, you can't exactly feel particularly good about anything if Brandon Graham is your best looking rusher again. That just can't happen. Cannot happen. Now, who they're going to have step up in that role, I don't know. Are we going to see Bryce Huff make an impact because he saw his snap count percentage drop each and every week? Maybe. You would hope that a pro who's getting paid millions and millions of dollars would kind of try to figure it out, would have some intrinsic motivation, would have, a little bit of personal pride and try to figure it out with Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator. You would hope. I have no idea. I've never spoken to Bryce Huff. I've never spoken to Vic Fangio. I don't know. I don't have like little birdies who speak to me from inside the Eagles locker room. Say little birdies. That's pretty funny. But no, like I don't know what this is going to look like. You have to hope that Bryce Huff's able to figure it out. That ultimately is the thing that can take the Eagles to another level. The defense looked fantastic against New Orleans. We talked about this on Tuesday. They shut down an offense that put up 44 on the road against the Cowboys. That Saints offense is legit. I don't think that what the Eagles were able to do to the Saints is something that you're going to see happen every week now. I still think that the Saints are going to have a high-scoring offense. We will see what happens. We will see how it plays out. I'm going to go over to the comments really quickly here before we head out. Josh White says, please, Hassan, I can't stand watching Bryce Huff anymore. Reed DeFord says, sucks to suck. Honor your contract. I think that was back about Kolosov, but it could work with, Huff, like, on a different level. AJ Snap checks in over and says, what is this start time? This is Bedlam. Usually it's an 8:30 show. I think we started, what was it? Was it 3:15? I can do some real quick math here. I think it was around 3:15. We started the show today. Had some home reno stuff going on this morning. You try to make it work in this world. Josh White also asks, is Darius Slay in or out this week? I have no idea. I think he was in concussion protocol. Lane Johnson was in concussion protocol. Devontae Smith was in concussion protocol. Oh, by the way, it was like a $4,600 fine, I think, was levied against the defensive player for the Saints, whose name is escaping me right now, who laid that late dirty hit on Devontae Smith, knocked his helmet off, all that. It was like a $4,600 fine. That was it. No suspension, no nothing. Absolute joke. Bush League. Not sure about Slay. I would guess that if Slay is not 100%, we will have to call him Darius this week, though. There will be no big play Slay. One interesting thing to keep an eye on this weekend, if you are looking at, I'm not saying look at, betting on this game on like the defensive side of the ball, but if you were going to, you go over to, one of the sites that I write for and you can go read about it. But something tells me that you're going to see CJGJ make a big play this weekend. He's been very vocal. He's been into it with Micah Parsons on Twitter. Micah Parsons did a thing on his podcast about CJGJ. I fully expect to see CJGJ force a fumble or come up with an interception this weekend. I think you're going to see him make a big play. That's where I'm at. I think that that's a guy to keep an eye on this weekend. Now, we will be back on Tuesday, 8:30 in the morning, live on YouTube. The show goes up in the podcast feed as well on Apple Podcasts, Pandora, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find The Russ Joy Show. And I'm going to show you really quickly because I didn't do this at the start of the show. But seriously, if you go over to shop.therussjoyshow.com, link is in the description of the episode, you will find some fantastic, and I mean it, I'm not like exactly a shill for myself here, but I am a little bit. Some great designs for Red October. Phillies still battling for home field advantage in the NL playoffs and in the playoffs overall. But you head over to shop.therussjoyshow.com. Here's some of the designs. We've got the Red October shirt with the ghost, little spooky season, right? Yeah. Schwarbaum, Red October, postseason. It says ring the bell up here on the wood part. Everything else are Red October. Don't give a cruck. Ring the bell. Check out these designs. They're available in short sleeve t-shirts, long sleeve t-shirts. We got them in hoodies. They're also in crew neck sweatshirts. And if there's a child that you want to get one for, I think you have to go to this like little menu over here. But somewhere in here, they have the kids' versions of this stuff as well. I think it's on like page 2 of the store. Yeah, there it is. So we have the Ghost Red October in a kid's t-shirt size and in a kid's hoodie size. Will I go out of my way to make sure that I get these for my kids? I might. Here's a little tip for you. If you go over and you make a purchase of $50 or more, so that's 2 t-shirts or a t-shirt and a sweater, t-shirt and a hoodie, whatever, you'll get free shipping. If your order is $50 or more, just use the promo code JOY at checkout. Free shipping. And again, these are made by a local company. Support small business. That's all I ask. Shop.therussjoyshow.com. Go get your Red October merch. Joe Papel asks, is Russ live? Oh, I was live, Joe. Don't you worry. I was live. I was here. We did it live. Reed DeFord thinks that it's going to be 2:20 on Tuesday. No. 8:30 a.m. live. The Russ Joy Show. I'm actually going to try to be a really good guy next week and make sure that I'm on my ish and that I have everything prepared. And I'll even try on Monday night to have like the studio set up and everything so I can just hit go live, drop the kids off at the bus stop, come back in, have my coffee made already. Look, I had coffee today. You know, sure, I made espresso midday. It's fine. No big deal. Joe Papel says, bet the over on that 2:20. And Josh White says, I love my Michkov Mania sweatshirt, so I might have to get some of that. Michkov Mania is available at michkovmania.com, which will take you to the shop.snowthegoalie.com store. You can go over there. That's where the flyer stuff is. Shop.snowthegoalie.com. All right, anyway, this has been a long-winded way for me to get out of here. I want to thank all of you who found the show. I mean, I love you. You're all fantastic. Everybody who listens to the show, watches the show, all that, you're all fantastic. The people who still jump in no matter what time of day and hop in the comments section, bless you all. Fantastic people. And all those of you who typically jump in but couldn't during this afternoon edition of the show, you're all fantastic too. Now, do me a favor, seriously. Like the video, share the video, subscribe. When the show's done, go into the regular comments section, leave a comment. I don't care what you leave there. Just leave a nice comment, and I'll do the likey thing. We'll pin one. And YouTube likes this kind of stuff. And the show grows. And then we're all happy. CT Landry asks, do you ship to Canada? You're damn right we do, CT Landry. We'll ship to Canada, and you'll still get free shipping. And I'll tell you what, if I lose money on the order to give you free shipping to send it to Canada, I don't even care. But then you have to make sure that you share where you got your Red October stuff. All right? Or if you go to the Snow the Goalie store, yes, we do ship to Canada. So just saying, I'm just a guy who's trying to sell some merch. I think they're nice designs too. So there's that. Anyway, Tuesday, we'll be back. We'll recap the Eagles game, bunch of other stuff. I'll probably be doing Crossing broadcast on Monday at noon over on the Crossing Broad YouTube channel. Got this 8:30 on Tuesday, a Snow the Goalie at some point next week. We have a big interview coming up next week that we'll get to. Flyers are almost back. We'll be doing press row show and everything. And then, of course, the show back again next Friday, 8:30 a.m. Am I going to go to 3 times a week? I have no idea. Am I going to go to 5 times a week? Not anytime soon. I think 2 times is probably enough. I have started to flirt with the idea of Monday, Wednesday, Friday, though. I don't think I'm going to do it, but I might be crazy enough to do it. But it's probably going to stay Tuesdays and Fridays, at least for now. We'll see. You have to stick around to find out. All right, I've done a lot of talking. Everybody have a great rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend. Have a fantastic weekend, a wonderful weekend. And I will talk to all of you on Tuesday here on The Russ Joy Show. Have a great day.